At the heart of every Springboard program is the Family Workshop. This is where families learn literacy practices from the educators, where the educator learns from families about how children are reading outside of the classroom, and where everyone learns from each other more effective ways to support children's reading habits and skills. A well-facilitated family workshop reaches the following outcomes. It builds an academic partnership, gives families the skills and knowledge they need to be effective at-home reading coaches for their children, encourages families to create together reading time, and encourage children to spend time reading on their own so that children are reading at least 15 minutes every day, enlists the support of families to help educators gauge where students are and what they need next. As you watch the following model, notice ways that the facilitator and the materials she used are helping build towards these outcomes.
All right, good morning, everybody. So nice to see you here at this first family workshop. Thank you for being early. We still have a couple of minutes until the official start time of the workshop, but I wanted to let you all in so we can start to get to know each other a little bit. So I'm going to share my screen with you all so you can see what you'll do every time when we start a workshop. So when you pop into the Zoom room, first thing I want you to do is make sure you're on mute. That just helps reduce any background noise so we can all focus on one thing at a time. Next, please sit with your child. If you are with your child today and they're not sitting next to you, call them over so they can sit right there with you, and we're going to go through this all together. And finally, if you can use the chat box, I want you to type in a few things, and you'll notice at the bottom of your screen, there's a little speech bubble that says chat. So you can click on that and please type your child's full name, your name, and your relationship to the scholar, and answer our warm-up question so we get to know each other a bit today. So the warm-up question is, what is your dream vacation? So I know during summer, I'm starting to think about all the places I want to visit. So please pop that in the chat so we can imagine all the places we might go this summer. And I'll do that too. Great. I see many families adding to the chat. I even see some students, I think, helping to type. That's great. Excellent. So as people continue to roll in, make sure you're on mute, sit with your child, and please pop into the chat your child's name, your name, and your relationship to your student. And finally, answer our warm-up question. What is your dream vacation? Thinking it's hard to choose, huh? Amazing. So it is now the official start time of our workshop. So we're going to jump right in because I want to honor that you all working on time today, and I want to make sure we leave on time today too. So we're going to get started. So welcome. If you are here today, you have agreed to be one of your child's at-home reading coaches. And so you and I and your student are going to work together this summer to increase our reading abilities, and we're going to use different strategies and we're going to learn together. And this is just the first of 5 workshops where we're going to learn a skill or strategy that you can then practice as a coach reading with your student at home. So now we are jumping into the agenda, and we're in our welcome portion of the agenda. And you'll notice that each piece of our agenda has a little icon. Those icons run along the bottom of the screen as well to help you keep track of where we are in the workshop. So we'll always start with a welcome, a new way to get to know each other and ground ourselves in this space. Then we'll move on to our reading tip. Each workshop is going to have a reading tip that's going to help you really practice reading with your child at home. And then during the workshop, we're going to have practice time. So you'll have the chance to use a real text and practice the strategy with your child with my support. And finally, we'll finish with reflection and updates. Throughout the time together today, please don't hesitate to ask questions if you have them. You can use the hand raise function in Zoom, or just give me a wave or type it in the chat. Lots of ways to ask questions, but please don't leave here with questions unasked. Even if I don't know the answer, I'll track it down for you. All right, so why are we here? Well, this is a great question. The purpose of these family workshops is to give you tools you need to effectively read together with your child at home. And then you and I and the child are all working together to boost their reading and set them up for success as they go into the next school year. So your child has a goal, and Springboard Connect is a tool that you've all used hopefully so far. Give me a thumbs up if you know what I mean when I say Springboard Connect. Great, great. So you filled out a questionnaire in there, and think about Springboard Connect as a resource or a tool, but it's not everything. So if learning to read was like playing basketball, Springboard Connect is the piece that's like drills, right? It's going to give you like little practice things to do to like get better at shooting 3-pointers. But basketball is not just about 3-pointers unless you're Steph Curry. It's about many other things, right? So the family workshops are going to help give additional tools and strategies so that your student is a well-rounded basketball player, not just a 3-point shooter. So your child has this goal they're working on. And then in these workshops and throughout the summer, we are going to learn new things together, and we are going to practice. So I want to teach you how to help your child practice at home, and you're at home. So you have this advantage. I get to be with your child during Springboard time, but when you're at home, you have an extra set of time and quality time to read together. When you're reading with your child, you're going to also ask questions, right? You're going to talk with them about the books and the stories. You're going to ask me questions about how can I practice this strategy in a different way. And all of those things combined are going to give your child that reading boost that we want to see this summer. So these are our workshop guidelines, and may I have families, I'm going to give you a chance to come off of mute and share with us the guidelines so that we're all on the same page for each of the workshops, what the expectations are. So who could help us with this first one? Yeah, go ahead. Exactly. We're going to be on time. Thank you for those people who were on time today. And we're always going to start right when the workshop time begins. So if you hopped in a little bit later, know that it's not that we didn't want to wait for you. We just wanted to get started on time. So we can leave on time as well. Who could read this one? Awesome. And I really see people already. I don't see any cell phones. I see families sitting together. That's great. Please be present. And of course, courteous. We already talked about being on mute. If you need to stand up or grab something and need to turn your video off for a minute, you may, but having that video on really gives us that community feel that we don't have since we're not in the shared space together. And the last one, this one's super important. Who can read this for us? Great. Yes, so asking questions. So you can put them in the chat, you can raise your hand. Please, please, please speak up. Okay, any questions about these? Awesome. So what is a skilled reader? Well, we want to help our students become independent readers, and strong independent readers do a number of things. When I'm reading with a student, I'm listening in to see what happens when a child gets to a tricky word. So they need to be able to figure out those tricky words, either using phonics or another strategy to sound it out. Next, does your child sound like a storyteller? Does it sound like a fluent reader? Are they able to figure out those words and put them together smoothly? Another thing is, of course, we want students to understand the story, right? If a student can read the words but doesn't understand what they mean or how they relate to other things, then they're not really gaining all of the information from the text. So do they understand the story? And last, we really hope that students are engaged and enjoying reading. And you don't have to enjoy reading to be a good reader, but we hope that we're building in that enjoyment as well. So in Springboard Connect, it probably coached you towards one of these areas. So you should already know if your child is working on figure out the word, sound like a storyteller, or understand the story. So let's see a show of hands. Who is working on figure out the word? You could raise a hand. Okay, awesome. Who's working on sounding like a storyteller? A few more hands. And how about understand the story? Excellent. So we're all working on different things, but we're going to work together also this summer. So reading at school isn't enough, right? I have your students for just a few hours each day. And though we're going to be working really hard, right, scholars, we need to be reading at home as well. So reading at home increases the amount of time your child is practicing, and you're going to log that time in Springboard Connect every day so that I can see and give you high fives and shout outs for all those minutes you're reading together at home. And it also is better quality of practice, right? So when your child's reading with you, they're going to have more access to understand the text and figure out words and things like that. So they're getting more time, quality time, and also quality of practice when they're reading at home. So reading at home can be a little bit challenging if you haven't done it before. So show me on a thermometer. This is like, we already read at home every day, or do sometimes, or this isn't really something we do. Let's see if families and scholars can be brave and show us. And it's okay if you and your scholar have a different idea. Yeah, I see we're in different places, right? Some of us may be really excellent readers at home and do this all the time. And some, this might be new. So what we know is that we can learn to do this, right? So can anyone come off mute and share what works well for your family when it comes to reading at home? Yeah, go ahead. Great. So yeah, reading right before bed. That's a great time to read. If that's when, you get cozy and ready. Yeah, another great time to read. Yeah, maybe right when you get home from school, right? That kind of reset between school and home. Awesome. If you have any other ideas, type them in the chat to give other families thoughts around what it could be like. And I know reading at home can also be kind of difficult, right? Who here has experienced a challenge when it comes to spending time reading at home? Yeah, it could be that, you get off work late and there's just not enough time. So maybe in that case, morning reading, maybe before breakfast or during breakfast. Yeah, any other challenges? Great, thank you for sharing. We can think later about ideas to address those. So Springboard isn't just a reading program during the day. We've got resources for you. So there are some tangible resources like Springboard Connect, things that you're really going to be interfacing with a lot this summer. That's going to give you tips and tricks and places for you to track your minutes. But we also have books. So everyone should have access to reading A to Z. Thumbs up if you already got access to that. We're going to use it today. Great. But there's also books in other places. If your child doesn't already have a library card, I highly recommend finding out where your local library is. It takes about 5 minutes. You fill out a form, and then you have access to the whole range of books at the library. And also researching in your community, sometimes there are book drives where you can go and pick up a number of books for free often. So find out where there are books in your community and get them. The more books we have for students to read, the better. And then there are also things we're going to provide like reminders of what you're learning here. So right now I'm going to drop in the chat what we call our reading tip sheet. And this is going to summarize our reading tip for the day and also give you some ideas on how to build on it. And we'll talk about it later, but I want you to have access to that here so you can see that. And there's also a little place to take notes at the bottom as well. So other than tangible resources, there are some intangible resources, right? First thing is support from this community. So we're already sharing ideas in the chat. Thank you to those families who shared aloud as well, things that work us so far at home. Let's work together this summer and utilize each other as a resource. Next, I hope that working with me as your child's teacher this summer is going to be a resource. And of course, during the school year, your relationship with your child's teacher may look a little bit different, but this summer, I'm really here for you. So please don't hesitate to reach out with questions throughout the summer. And I will get back to you as soon as I can with information so that we really continue to build this deep partnership in support of reading growth this summer. And then another resource is this supported practice that we shared today. And during each family workshop, you're going to have time to practice a tip with my direct support. So I've said this once before, but you're going to hear this a lot this summer. Always ask questions. So sometimes when I'm in a workshop like this, I have a question. I think, no. But remember, like if you have a question, most people probably also have the same question. So please be brave and ask. And this applies to our reading as well with our students. The tip that we're going to share today is about asking your child questions before, during, and after reading. And if a child asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, or you ask them a question that you don't know the answer to, that's also okay, because that starts a conversation about the story that then leads to better understanding. Even I don't know all of the answers. So if you remember nothing today, except this, remember to ask questions before, during, and after reading. And I want to point out a few of our families are English language learners, right? English is a second language. So it can be a little intimidating to be reading in a language that's not your first language. Whenever I try to do that, it's very challenging. So it's okay to talk with your child about, how do you feel about reading this in English? Since the summer, that's what we're focusing on. And that can help to release some tension or any anxiety about it and say, yeah, we're going to, try our best together. And if we get to words we don't know, we can look them up.
Pause and think for a moment about the expected outcomes of a family workshop. Ask yourself, or discuss with a partner, the following questions. How have you seen the facilitator build relationships and partnerships with the families? What about relationships among families? What skills or knowledge has the facilitator shared that will help the families be skilled at-home reading coaches? What information or skills has she helped families share with each other? What specific ways has the facilitator encouraged families to read at home? How has the facilitator helped families use Connect, our app to support reading at home? At what points has the facilitator gotten information about what children are doing at home? How might that information help her in the classroom?
So today's reading tip is, like I said, about asking questions before, during, and after reading. And you may be thinking, ask questions. I thought during reading, we're just reading and listening. No, this is really important. So take a thinking moment and think about, how do you talk to your child about books? If you want to add it to the chat, you can. Or just think, is this something you're already doing, or is this something new? Yeah. So having conversations about books is something that might be new, but you're probably already telling stories with your students, stories about the day or about a trip you took, or stories about what has happened in the past. And all of that storytelling is very similar to talking about books. What happened first? What happened next? Who was there? Where were you? So those kinds of conversations are already helping you build towards this reading tip. So for today, I want you to find your materials, because we're going to practice together. So I'm going to drop in the chat the link to this Raz Kids book, Scaredy Crow. And I've also put up here the reading tip sheet. That's in the chat as well. I'll drop it one more time just in case. So both of these can serve as a resource for you during this time. But we're going to open Scaredy Crow, and we are going to start asking questions before reading. So here are some examples of questions you could ask. What do you think this book will be about? What in the book makes you think that? Do I have a brave family or scholar who can read the next question we could ask? Great. One more family to read the last question. Awesome. So notice that these questions are asking a question and then asking why. That's really important too, because it helps to build on answers and add to comprehension. So looking back at this book, Scaredy Crow, what do you think this book will be about? So scholars, any ideas? Yeah, maybe it's going to be about birds. Maybe I see a farm and using the picture to help me. What do I think this book will be about? So I can start just by looking at the cover of a book, asking questions before reading. But I can also look at some of the pages. So in the first 2 pages of the book, maybe I'm just looking at the pictures. I see a scarecrow. I see clouds. I see corn. Interesting. And I see 2 birds. So when I'm thinking about before reading, I could also start to think, who could be in the story, right? Who do you think the main characters of the books will be? Or what do you think will happen and why? So take a moment and talk with your scholar about who are the main characters and what do you think will happen? After you've asked those, think about what other questions you should ask. Take just 2 minutes and practice that with your child. Great. So now that we've practiced asking some questions before reading, let's think about some questions we could ask during reading. So once we've opened the book and we've started to get an idea about what it's about, here's some other things you could say. I noticed the word, what can you tell me about this word? So for example, in our book here, you might say, I noticed the word, scarecrow. Oh, there it is. I noticed the word scarecrow right here. What do you notice about that word? And that could help your child to start to think, how might I pronounce that word or approach that word if it's a word I don't know? Yeah. Another thing you could ask your child during reading is you could ask them, what do you think is going to happen next? This is making predictions. Taking the information we've already learned and thinking and applying it, what might happen next? You could also ask, if you were in this story, what would you do? That helps a student to connect the story to themselves in their own lives. So let's go back to the page, the first 2 pages. And I want you now to reread and ask some of those during reading questions. Make a prediction. What might happen next? So take 2 minutes with your scholar to practice this. Great. Okay, so now we have some ideas for things we could ask before reading and during reading. What's next? What are we missing? After reading. So after we've read a whole book, we can ask other questions. So in just a minute, I'm going to ask you to read until page 12. And we're going to think about questions that we could ask after reading. So who could help read some of these questions? Come on off mute and share. What happened in the end? We could circle back to our prediction. Who can read the next question? Yeah, what's it all about? A retelling from the beginning, what happened first, next, last. We practice this a lot during Springboard. You could also then say, show me in the book, or can you find where in the book that, why you think that, looking for evidence. And last question, yeah, if you were in this story, what would you do? And just like before, we said, always you can follow up with asking why. Try to dig a little bit deeper for your scholar to find out why they think that. And that's going to help them have a more well-rounded understanding of the story. So now I would like you, as I mentioned, to go back and reread through page 12. And remember our reading tip today: ask questions before reading, ask questions during reading, and ask questions after reading, okay? And if you need another question to ask your student, here are some other ideas of things you could ask. And maybe you want to even take a screenshot of this slide to help you remember later what other types of questions you could ask while you're practicing. So we're going to jump into practice time. And again, we're going to read through the end of Scaredy Crow and practicing the strategy. And I'm going to put you into breakout rooms so that I can pop in and listen in as you practice, answer any questions you have, and reinforce what you're already doing well as a coach at home. So you can stay on mute, but when I pop in, I'm going to ask you to come off so I can hear you read together. Then you're going to be reading together, practicing the tip. And at the end, we're going to come back together. And I want you to be ready to share, how did it go? What was challenging? What went well? And we're going to be that resource for other families to support each other in our learning. So who can tell me, what are we going to do? What's our job during practice time? Great. Exactly. We're going to go into breakout rooms, practice reading together. I'm going to pop in to help, and at the end, be ready to share how it went. Do I have any volunteers now who know they're going to want to share afterward? Getting a few families ready. Awesome. Yeah, the 2 of you guys can start, and then we'll see who else wants to share. Perfect. So finding that next page of Scaredy Crow. And if you finish Scaredy Crow and you have another book nearby, or you want to find a book on Raz Kids, please do utilize this whole practice time reading together and asking questions. And if I pop in and you're reading another book, that's okay. I'll love to ask some questions about it too. So we're going to have about 20 minutes for practice time so that I can pop around and support all families. And I can already tell by the way you're sitting together, this is going to be really productive, useful time. So happy reading, friends, and see you in your breakout rooms soon. Wow, I saw so many families practicing this strategy together. That was so much fun, scholars. Thank you for helping your families to understand some of the Zoom features that we were working on. And thank you, coaches, for really spending this time focused on your child and really digging into this practice. So let's think. I had 2 families who were going to share. How did it go? So come on off mute and tell me, how did it go? Great. So yeah, you can get a little stuck. Like, I already asked the questions I know. What do I ask next? Yeah, well, on that reading tip sheet we showed you, there's a whole nother list of questions that you can be prepared to ask. And I recommend just keeping a notepad nearby and jotting down questions as you think of them so that you'll never go without a question. And how did it go? Good. Yeah, I'm glad it went well. It can be, once you start, it can also just come really naturally, right? Any questions about the reading tip? Does anybody wonder, like, what types of questions or other thoughts? Yeah, you're right. On the reading tip sheet, there are 2 sections. One says play and interact, and one says something about the real world. Those are sections we haven't really talked about, but in the play and interact, it's going to give you like a game or something else that builds on this reading tip. And then in the real world, it's going to give you things not just to sit on the couch and practice at home, but when you're out in the world, how could you kind of use this tip and practice this tip? So please do look at that. And of course, let me know if you have questions about how to implement that as well. So we are wrapping up. And just like I said, I want to make sure we're out of here on time. So give me a thumbs up again of how do you feel about trying this tip at home? Awesome. I see a lot more thumbs up now. And don't forget, when you're practicing this at home, to record your minutes and write them down in Springboard Connect so I can track and see how much you're reading together. That's great. So just to remind you of a few of our other resources, you already have Raz Kids Access or Kids A to Z. If you have any trouble getting in, let me know in the chat and I'll stay with you after to make sure everybody has access to that. And don't forget about Connect, because it's going to send you reminders from this text message that's going to give you extra reading tips and reminders to log your minutes. So let's try to make a practice and a habit of logging into Connect every day. And remember that I can see it on the other side. So I'll be shouting out students who I see are logging in those minutes every day. So with just about 4 minutes left, I want to give you an opportunity to give feedback for this session. We really appreciate your input because it helps us to improve for the next session and make it more applicable. So I'm going to drop this link here in the chat for you to fill out the survey. And believe me, I do read it, and hopefully you'll see any changes into the next session. Thanks so much for doing that, families. And we are now at the end of our time together. If you want to follow Springboard, you can certainly do that. And with that, we're going to close with 30 seconds to spare. Thank you so much for being here, families. I'm super excited about the work we're going to do together this summer to boost your child's reading growth and learn new ways that we can be helpful in supporting them at home. All right, take care. If you want to stay around for any extra questions, I'm going to hang out for a few minutes. Awesome. Bye. Thank you, families. Oh, so glad. Great. All right, take care. Bye.
Let's pause and reflect. How did the facilitator's preparation support the effectiveness of the workshop? How did she use the materials to support her facilitation? What are 3 specific facilitator actions that helped this workshop reach the desired outcomes? What else did you notice the facilitator doing that you'd like to try when you host family workshops?